What if you could predict the future of the global economy? Imagine possessing the power to foresee economic patterns, to anticipate shifts in the market, and to prepare for financial ups and downs before they happen. Sounds intriguing, doesn't it? Well, as much as we'd like to have a time machine or a crystal ball, what we do have is the next best thing: economic indicators. These are a series of data points that provide us with a snapshot of the economic health of a nation, a region, or indeed, the entire globe. They're like the vital signs of the economy, giving us clues about its current state and possible future directions. So what exactly are these economic indicators? Think of them as the pulse, temperature, and blood pressure of the global economy. They include things like gross domestic product, or GDP, which measures the total value of goods and services produced by a country. They also encompass the unemployment rate, which tells us how many people are out of work, and the inflation rate, which indicates how fast prices are rising or falling. These indicators are not just numbers. They are stories about our lives, livelihoods, and aspirations. They tell us whether we're likely to find jobs, if we can afford to buy a house, or if our savings will be enough for retirement. They're like a barometer, helping us gauge the economic weather and prepare for what's coming. Of course, reading these indicators is not a straightforward task. They're influenced by a host of factors, from government policies and technological advancements to natural disasters and geopolitical events. It takes knowledge, skill, and a fair bit of detective work to interpret them accurately. So why is it so important to understand these global economic trends? Because they shape our world, influence our decisions, and impact our lives in profound ways. They help businesses plan their strategies, governments formulate their policies, and individuals make informed choices. So while we may not have a crystal ball to see the future, we do have economic indicators. And understanding these indicators is like having a crystal ball for the economy. Imagine the global economy as a giant supermarket, and the gross domestic product, or GDP, as its total sales. Now let's simplify this a bit. Gross domestic product, or GDP, is the total value of all goods and services produced within a country's borders in a specific time period. It's a bit like a scorecard for a country's economic health. Think of it this way. When you go to a supermarket, you fill your cart with goods. Each of these goods has a price tag, and the total value of the goods in your cart represents your personal GDP. Now scale this up to a country level, where the cart is the country, and the goods are every product and service produced within that country. This total value is the country's GDP. But why does GDP matter? GDP is a vital economic indicator. It shows whether a country's economy is growing or shrinking. It's a bit like a doctor checking a patient's heart rate. A strong, steady heartbeat indicates good health, while a weak or irregular one suggests there might be a problem. So, when GDP is rising, it signifies economic growth. Companies are producing more goods and services, people are buying more, and there's a good chance that employment is high and incomes are rising. It's like our supermarket is bustling with happy customers. On the other hand, a falling GDP could signal trouble. It might mean that production is slowing down, people are buying less, and unemployment could be on the rise. In our supermarket analogy, it's like the aisles are empty and the checkout lines are short. However, it's important to note that GDP is not a perfect measure. It doesn't consider factors like income inequality or environmental impact, but for a snapshot of a country's economic performance, it's a pretty useful tool. So, a rising GDP means a booming economy, while a falling one signifies trouble. Scene script. Picture a bustling city. Now, imagine if half the people had no jobs. This stark image brings us to the topic of the unemployment rate. The unemployment rate is more than just a statistic. It's a reflection of the economic health of a nation, a barometer that gauges the number of people in the workforce who are without jobs, but are actively seeking employment. So how does it work? Well, to calculate the unemployment rate, we divide the number of unemployed individuals by the total number of individuals in the workforce. Yes, only those actively looking for work are counted. If you're jobless and have stopped looking for work, you're not included in these statistics. Now you might wonder, why does the unemployment rate matter? Well, the implications of high or low unemployment rates are far-reaching. When the unemployment rate is low, it means that most people who want to work have jobs. This is generally a sign of a healthy economy. Businesses are thriving, people are spending, and the economic wheel keeps turning. But what happens when the unemployment rate is high? This could be an indicator of economic distress. When a large portion of the population is unemployed, it means that fewer people are earning wages, and therefore spending less. This lack of consumer spending can lead to slower economic growth or even a contraction. Moreover, high unemployment can have societal implications too. It can lead to an increase in poverty, a rise in crime, and a decrease in overall well-being and happiness. The unemployment rate is a key indicator that economists and policymakers closely monitor. They use this data to make decisions about fiscal and monetary policies that can stimulate job growth, stabilize the economy, and ultimately improve the lives of people. So the next time you hear about the unemployment rate on the news, think about what it means. It's not just about jobs. It's about economic health, societal well-being, and the vibrancy of our cities and towns. A low unemployment rate signals a healthy economy, while a high rate could mean economic distress. Imagine if the price of your favorite coffee doubled overnight. Welcome to the world of inflation, a concept that might seem complex at first, but is as simple as that cup of coffee. Inflation, in its essence, measures the rate at which the general level of prices for goods and services is increasing. So, if your coffee indeed doubles in price overnight, we're looking at a case of severe inflation. But why does this matter? Well, inflation influences everything from your daily purchases to the health of the global economy. Think of it like this. When prices rise, every dollar you hold buys a smaller percentage of a good or service. If your income doesn't keep up with inflation, your buying power declines. That's why people often fret when they hear about rising inflation rates. On the other hand, inflation isn't necessarily a villain. A certain level of inflation is actually healthy for an economy. It encourages spending and investment, which in turn stimulates economic growth. If prices stayed the same or fell, consumers might delay purchases, hoping for lower prices in the future. This could lead to a decline in demand, slowing economic growth. However, like most things in life, the key is balance. Low inflation is usually a good sign, but too low can be problematic. When inflation is too low, it can lead to a situation called deflation, where prices are dropping. While this might sound like a dream come true, it can actually be harmful. It can lead to reduced economic activity as consumers hold off on spending in anticipation of further price drops. On the flip side, high inflation can erode purchasing power and create uncertainty in the economy. When inflation gets too high, it can lead to an economic condition known as hyperinflation, where prices increase rapidly and out of control. This can wreak havoc on an economy, as it erodes the value of currency and can lead to financial ruin. So when it comes to inflation, it's all about balance. Not too high, not too low, just right. Like that perfect cup of coffee. Low inflation is usually a good sign, but too low or too high can be problematic. So we've taken a whirlwind tour of the world of economic indicators. Let's take a breath and reflect on what we've learned. Gross domestic product, or GDP, is our first stop on this review journey. It's the total value of all goods and services produced by a country in a certain period. It's like the pulse of an economy, giving us a sense of its health and vitality. A rising GDP signifies economic growth and prosperity, whereas a declining GDP can indicate an economy in trouble. Next, we visited the realm of the unemployment rate. This figure represents the percentage of the labor force that's jobless and actively seeking employment. It's a critical indicator of economic health, as high unemployment can signal an economy in distress. On the flip side, low unemployment often points to a robust, thriving economy. Our third stop was the inflation rate. This measures the rate at which the general level of prices for goods and services is rising. It's like the temperature of the economy. A moderate rate of inflation is considered healthy and normal. However, high inflation can erode purchasing power and can even lead to economic instability. These three indicators, GDP, unemployment rate, and inflation rate, are like vital signs for the economy. They give us a snapshot of the current state of the economy, and when tracked over time, they can help us predict future economic trends. It's like looking at patterns in the stars to predict the weather. But remember, these indicators are not infallible. They're tools, powerful ones, but they need to be used with care and understanding. They can guide us, but they don't provide all the answers. With these indicators, you're now equipped to make sense of the global economic landscape.